Hey gang, Private Jack here. Welcome to part 2 in my sessions on how to decompile a Valve asset, get it into Blender, edit it a little bit, and then fire it back at Source Filmmaker. What we're going to cover in this particular session is we're going to start working on the programs. First one we're going to talk about is Source Filmmaker and basically GCFScape. So, Source Filmmaker. Source Filmmaker found in your Steam client library under software. If you have a problem, what you're more or less going to be told is validate your game or your local game cache files. So how do I do that? All you do is come into your client, come down here to Source Filmmaker, right click on it, move into properties. Down here on the local files tab, there's another button here, verify integrity of application cache. That's what we're telling you to do. What this will do is it'll start a process where the client will actually go through and validate your applications that you have on your computer with the actual game files, and will go into a download mode to replace any corrupted or broken or missing files. When you click that little button there, it's going to take quite a while to download or to actually go through and verify. And that's depending on the amount of content that you have added to Source Filmmaker. For example, Source Filmmaker currently has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 download content packages. If you decide to download all these packages, you're looking at anywhere between 16 and 20 gigs on your hard drive space. So if you're running out of disk space, you don't want to bring the download content down. Okay. Let's see. You're trying to upload something to the workshop or something up to a screenshot or an artwork, and it comes back and tells you that you don't have enough disk space. What that's referring to is if you go into the Source Filmmaker properties and come down here to the Updates tab, if you click on that, down here at the bottom of the screen, you're going to find Steam Cloud. And if you have Enable Steam Cloud Synchronization for Source Filmmaker checked on, Steam is going to give you a gigabyte of space on the Steam server to store your stuff. Once you run out of that gig, you're out of space. You've got one of two options. You can either go in and start deleting stuff off the cloud, or open a new account, because that's all you get is at 1 gig. And it doesn't matter what you actually load. If you upload models, if you upload scripts, if you upload pictures, if you upload videos, the rest of that kind of stuff, it all counts against this little cache that they give you. And each program that Steam has that has a workshop has an allotted amount of space for that particular game. So if, for example, if I come in here and I go to my games and down to Team Fortress 2, go into the properties, check my updates, there, see? They've actually given me almost 1.5 gigs for Team Fortress 2 uploads. Okay, that's pretty much Source Filmmaker. And let's talk about the SDK. Okay, so basically what we're going to tell you is launch the SDK. The way you launch the SDK is you come into Source Filmmaker, you launch Source Filmmaker, and you're given two options here. You can either go straight into Source Filmmaker, or you can launch the SDK. Launch the SDK right there, and if you'll be presented with a little screen here, and there's all kinds of weird and wonderful stuff here, like Source Filmmaker. You can launch Source Filmmaker from here, the Hammer editor, which is a map editor, or the model viewer. Here, if we tell you to reset your game configurations, all you have to do is come in here and click on that and say OK to all the prompts. Done. Okay, you can actually delete the game configurations or remove the environment variables altogether. Also, we're going to tell you about edit search paths. We're going to go into that in more detail at a later date when we actually get into adding mods through GCFScape. So I'm going to leave that for now. But that's the Source Filmmaker SDK. Also up here, you can click on here and go to the frequently asked questions website. And right here, tutorials. Click on the tutorials. Watch the tutorials. All you can do is, like, if you want to know anything about Source Filmmaker, this is where you're going to learn it. And as you can see, I've watched them all many, many, many times. Okay, that's Source Filmmaker out of the way. GCFScape. What GCFScape is a game cache file extractor. And you're going to say, well, what do I need a game cache file extractor for? And the answer is nothing, if you're willing to work with the materials that download with Source Filmmaker. However, if you want to load things from CSGO, Left 4 Dead 2, Portal 2, Bloody Good Time, and the list goes on, all the Valve games, then what you have to do is you have to actually extract game cache files from the actual games to do that, and port them into Source Filmmaker so that the assets become available. The reason for that is that Source Filmmaker cannot reach out and read into other game files. It's a standalone utility that reads files from its own directories. It doesn't branch out into the rest of the world like Gary's mod does. So we're going to extract a quick game here. I'm going to bring in Bloody Good Time. What I did is I actually went through and that's the other thing. If TF2 goes through an update and it's got new taunts and new models and all the rest of that good stuff, and you want that stuff now and aren't willing to wait around for Source Filmmaker to update, then you need GCFScape to actually go into the game cache file and extract that and bring it into Source Filmmaker. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to extract a game file. And as I was starting to say, I did extract the newest download of TF2, and basically I found no difference between the actual SFM version and the extracted version that I took out yesterday. So there's not much sense in me showing you how to do that. So the process is the same. It doesn't matter what game you're actually extracting from or putting into Source Filmmaker. What you do is you launch GCFScape. Launch GCFScape. There we go. Okay, I said I was going to extract Bloody Good Time, and basically what that is a little game that's out there available. It's a Steam game or a Valve game, and it's kind of fun. So to extract it, what I have to do is I actually have to open up the game cache files. The game cache files are located within the folder for the actual game. So let's say Alien Swarm. If I wanted to extract Alien Swarm, if I come in here and go into Swarm and scroll down through the list here, I'm going to find a bunch of files that usually start pack01 VPK, and they have a little extension here. Well, what these are combined VPKs. They're like, I don't know, expanded zip files, I guess is a good example of it. And what you have to do is you have to find the actual header file for the PK for the pack. And the header file usually has an underscore dir.vpk in the file name. So if I open that up, right there, I'm going to find that I've opened up the game cache files for Alien Swarm. If I open up one of the ones that are not the header, I'm not going to get the whole file. And I'll usually get an error, okay? Because I'm not looking at the actual header file for the VPK. Okay, so let's get bloody good time and get that into Source FilmMaker. So here I've got GCFScape open. I'm going to File, Open. I'm going to go into my Common folder. I'm going to go down to my actual game folder, Bloody Good Time. I'm going to open that up. And in this particular case, the VPKs are actually in a folder called VPK. I open that up, and here, if you'll notice, I've got two different sets of VPKs. I've got 2451 and 2452, and both have header files. If I open up this first one, and what I'm looking for in this actual folder are models, materials, particle, and sound folders. And I drill into these folders, I'm going to find that I don't have those particular. I've got a materials folder, but it's just for the debug engine and the VGUI. If I go into PM, I don't have a models, materials, particle, or sound folder. So this is not the one that I need. I'm going to come back up to open it, the next one, and I'm going to come down here to 2452 DIR. I'm going to open that one up. I'm going to drill into this folder, and here I find it. I've got maps, materials, models, particles, and sound folders. Okay. Most times, all that you're going to find in the maps folders in a game cache file are Navi files and resource files. Usually in an actual game, the maps are located in the actual game folder under the game name maps folder. I'll show you that in a minute. But right now, what I want to do is I want to grab that materials, models, particles, and sound folder. I don't want anything else. If I extract anything else out of this file, I will most likely screw up Source FilmMaker. Now, what I want to do here is I want to extract these. So I'm going to right click on the ones that are selected, and I'm going to click on extract. And then I'm going to point this file browser down to where Source FilmMaker lives. So C, Program Files, x86, Steam, Steam Apps, come on, Steam, thank you, Steam Apps, Common, Source FilmMaker, all the way down to Source FilmMaker. I'm going to open up that. I'm going to go into the game folder, and I'm going to click on the game folder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new folder under the games folder. And I'm going to call this BGT for Bloody Good Time so I can reference it quickly. And I say, make sure it's selected and say OK. What will happen is GCFScape will now go through and it will start extracting those particular folders, and it will put them in that new folder that I just created called BGT. Scroll down. There's the material folder going in now. Now this is going to take a few minutes to do because it's got to go through and extract all the materials, all the models, all the particles, all the sound files. So I'll come back when this is done. Okay, just about finished here. Another 1,000 files. And as you can see, it added a materials, models, particles, and sound folder to that bloody good time folder that I actually created. When it finishes, GCFScape will become available. I can move the actual screen here. If this was still extracting, I wouldn't be able to move on this screen. Okay, now that that's done, what I have to do is I have to tell Source Filmmaker that that folder exists and that there's stuff in there for it to use. The way I do that is I go into the SDK. So I'm going to launch Steam, launch Source Filmmaker, come down here, select Launch SDK, and click Launch. This is where this edit search path for selected mod comes into play. I'm going to click on that. Now, all these folders in here have custom content in them. The usual folders that are available are TF Movies, TF. TF Update is where I put my extracted copy of the TF game file. Now, when I put it into the folder, what I usually do is I put it underneath TF. That way, only anything that is new to the actual game, or to the different from the game to SFM, will show up in that particular folder. This works on a hierarchy principle, where user mod has the highest priority and things are loaded from there first. So it goes user mod, TF movies, TF updates, Left 4 Dead, Half-Life 2, Workshop, and down the line, right? Well, here's that BGT folder that I just put in there, and it is not checked on. In order for Source Filmmaker to be able to find it, I have to check it on. And then I can pick it up and I can drag it anywhere I want in this particular file hierarchy. Okay, so let's say I want it above Workshop. I drop it there and I turn Workshop on. So now only these assets are being loaded into Source Filmmaker. I don't need the rest of the stuff. I don't plan on working with it right now. Okay, so basically I ported Left 4 Dead 2 content. It's in here. I've ported Day of Defeat content from the actual game file folders. It's in here. This Dino D-Day is the actual download content from Source. And I've ported CSGO into Source Filmmaker as well. But it is not checked on. Therefore, it will not be available in my session if I launch the session now. Okay, so now I am going to launch a session. Eventually it'll load up. There we go. See, it's not only you guys that have a long time waiting for Source Filmmaker to open, and I have a pretty strong computer. But right now I'm recording video. I've got another 7 or 8 different processes in the background running at the same time. There's the white screen. We're waiting for Source Filmmaker to load up, and there it is. I'm going to create a session. I'm not going to load a map. I'm just going to go into my create an animation set for new model just to show you what has happened. Okay, so here's a good example. I have subscribed to this particular item on the workshop. As soon as I start Source Filmmaker, I will get a pop-up saying it's ready for download. All I have to do is say yes, okay, if I want to download it. If I don't want to download it for this session, I can click it off and click OK. And then the next time I load up Source Filmmaker, this screen will pop up again, but we'll bring it down this time. If you get a workshop file conflict error, say yes to all, or it will not work. All files downloaded from the workshop, and it's now available. Okay. So right now it's going through, it's caching every model that is available in memory. Up here, the mods filter. Basically what that is you can actually point out to individual mods that you want to you want to view assets from. So if I go in here to user mod, only my user mod stuff is going to show up. If I go down here and go into TF movies, only the stuff that's loaded from TF movies will show up. TF, and like I say, if I go into TF update, there shouldn't be anything there. No model files. There was no difference between the TF movies and TF stuff that comes down through Source Filmmaker and the update that I actually loaded into Source Filmmaker to see if there was any changes. And you'll notice that this is in the file hierarchy order that is in the game info text file. Here's my bloody good time folder, and these are the assets that actually loaded up that I ported into Source Filmmaker. Animation files, various player models, and a whole raft of assets and weapons. Somebody looking for a sheep? Well, there's a weapon sheep. And this is one that I'm going to actually do a source film or a tutorial on, taking an asset and making something useful out of it. Okay, so basically that's Source Filmmaker and GCFScape, and why you would want to use GCFScape. And basically I have nothing else to say on this matter, so if you have any questions, put them in the comments and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Anyway, with that, what I'm going to say, Private Jack out.